Hi there, welcome to The Sacred Journey. The Sacred Journey is the program that reminds you that life is a wonderful adventure and each and every experience we have is a unique and perfect opportunity for learning. I'm Joyce St. Germain, and today's program, Spirit Photography, our annual event, will be low-key, it will be fun, it'll be candid, it'll be spontaneous, and it will be fun. So I have a wonderful room full of guests here, and some of them have been here before, and some are doing this for the first time. So I really want to make it clear that this is an educational program. It's not like, ooh, how weird and freaky and scary can we be? It's educational. It's meant to take some of the mystery and maybe kill some of the myths that exist. Spirit activity is everywhere, and it should be. Sometimes we get to see it with the naked eye, sometimes it shows up on film, sometimes it does both. Sometimes you will see it with the naked eye and it won't show up on film. Sometimes you won't see it with the naked eye, but you'll see it in your viewfinder. Sometimes you won't see it naked eye viewfinder, but when you get the image back like in the old days when we'd send the photos out to be processed, but when you see the result, it will be in there. It's fun because it's unexpected. And I was saying a little bit earlier that two people can be standing right next to each other using the exact same piece of equipment. Most of the time we just use cell phones. Take the same picture at exactly the same time. One person will get extraordinary things, one person will get nothing. It's not that that person's any more talented, it's just that exact moment in time, that image, the energy of it, whether it was an imprint, well, I'll explain that in just a moment, or whether it was an actual spirit form, decided to show up right then and there. What does help is for you to be open and receptive and leave your ego out of this. Like, I want to get the best picture, better than anybody ever got. Or, if I don't get pictures, people are going to think I'm not connected to spirit. Well, I don't want that to happen. There are times I get nothing, and there's times I get tons of stuff. That's just the way it is. It's kind of like the spiritual lottery in a photographic kind of way. So let me explain a little bit about the things that might show up in film. More than half of the stuff you get will look like it's something really cool and exciting. It will be dust. It'll be a reflection. It'll be a flash. It'll be somebody else who's way over there's flash, but because you're not aware of it, you think, oh wow, I got this really cool being from wherever came and showed up, and that's not always it. Somebody sent me a picture today. Wow, take a look at this. What do you make of it? This is so cool. My stepdaughter's birthday, and we're holding the cake, and look what we got in it. Who do you think it is? And I looked, and the very first thing, use your intuition. If you get a feeling that, yeah, I really sense that there's spiritual presence here, trust that. I'm not saying you're absolutely right, but trust it. If you get a sense like, I don't know, this looks like there's an explanation. In spirit photography, we try to eliminate all possible explanations. At first I looked at it, and there was one row of maybe 7 or 8 little blue, they look like hearts, the exact same color, then underneath it 2 more. And I said, okay, that's kind of interesting. I said, were you thinking about or talking about anything? Was there someone in spirit that maybe you had said, gee, I wish they could be here to celebrate this? Oh yeah, my friend, and I was wearing a necklace that she gave to me, and I know she would have loved my stepdaughter. So the story gets kind of sappy in a sweet kind of way, and you think, oh, she could have this, and then I went, wait a minute. I looked the exact configuration of, and I don't have permission to show you that, so I'm not going to show it to you, but there were exactly, okay, here's 2 people holding a cake, here's all the candles, and right across their legs were the little blue heart-shaped things. If you flip them over, they were exactly the same configuration as the candles, which meant, now it really did look like little blue hearts that were random. They were exactly the same if you flip them over, and a lot of things in photography get flipped, okay? has to do with the angle of the lens or the curvature of the lens. So that was a definite, I didn't want to burst her bubble. I said, it's very likely that person was present, but that's not what showed up. What showed up was just a camera thing. You will see a lot of just camera things, but then you'll see some things that you'll say, no way it can be just a camera things, and you kind of treasure those. So you start with a very open heart. You start by being respectful. I always, and before we leave we will do this, we'll do a light filling exercise. We will make sure to fill all of our molecules, cells, and the little spaces between with light. Two things can't be in the same place at the same time, so nothing but lightness will be able to be with you. And that's what you will attract. Now, here's an exception. If part of your sacred or spiritual work is soul rescue work, if that's the path you walk, that's a commitment you've made. We have people in this class and that are in the groups that I run that do this kind of work. There might be a being that's in need of help that will say, oh, I think they can hear me and see me. I need to get their attention because I need their help. If that's not your work, it's not that likely to happen, but they may say, well, if I get your attention, you will know to call so-and-so. I'm working with an elderly woman now that she had a lot of beings contact her. I didn't know her, but then somebody knew her, who knew him, who called me, and then the visitation stopped because they knew that they could somehow arrange to get the help they needed. And it was bona fide help that they needed, and it did show up. She found some gravestones, and they actually had an image of a face on them that wasn't on the actual stone, but it was in the photograph. So we knew that that was probably, when I say a face, you didn't have to squint and kind of look one way and change the lighting. It was a face. It was very, very clearly a face, almost like superimposed on it, and not from this era. When you see something that cannot be unexplained through scientific means, like this face, then you look into it, or you find out who can look into it. It's still not a scary thing. It's almost like getting a phone call and somebody saying, you know, I got a little problem here, I don't know who to turn to, but I'm not able to work it out myself. Can you help? Like if I called you and said, I've got this problem, can you help? You'd either say, oh yes, I can. No, I can't, but I know who can. That's how it works in the spirit world. Often, someone who was responsible for someone else will hang around until protecting a lost soul, until help can arrive. That happens a lot with the military. We'll be driving around and I'll say, I think there's a cemetery up ahead somewhere. Somebody needs help. We'll pull over. I'll walk around and I know exactly where to go to. It's usually like a captain or someone a little higher up who stayed behind, not because they were trapped, because they felt obligated to, because they had men that were trapped. And by trapped, I mean had not naturally found their way to this higher level of consciousness. And their responsibility was in the flesh and in the spirit to protect them. As soon as we helped them pass on, then they were ready to go themselves. So sometimes it's a real loving thing, and a very respectful thing that happens. So you will see orbs. That's the most common thing that you'll see. Now remember I said they're often dust spots. There's not going to be too much dust up there at night and in the dark. But they could be reflections. I'm looking at your buttons. If a flash bounced off of that, people would go, oh my gosh, look at these orbs, until you said, well, wait a minute, they're all lined up in a perfect configuration. And do try to alternate between still photography and video, okay? Try doing some with flash, some without. You'll get much more. Do some at eye level, some down, that's my dog just laying down, and some above. Okay, just try everything. I'll show you some examples of things we've gotten in the past and explain a little bit about them. But whenever you see spirit activity in film, calm down. It's common and it's normal. It's not. It's always a warm fuzzy. okay? Especially if it's someone that you knew, you know, a loved one. But just seeing a random orb or streak of light, it's very, very common. And the more we learn to understand that it's a common thing, the more this will show up. If you expect things, you will get things. And intention has a lot to do with it. Now I'm going to show you a couple of videos. I just have to find out where I put my iPad. Thank you. About a year ago, now who was here last year for this event? Okay, we did it the end of October, which we usually do. I just had a conflict and had to do it in November. My dog Sky, I call him my soulmate dog, was here. And a couple days later, he passed away, which was quite unexpected because he seemed very healthy. 2 days after that, and when I say my soulmate dog, it was just he and I for at least 10 years, because I have no children and I've been single for a lot of years. And he had told me after I had had him for about 11 months during a shamanic journey, he said, "I was your dog Skippy." I went, "What?" 50 years before I named him Sky, that wasn't his name, I had a dog named Skippy. And I couldn't tell you what kind of dog he was. I was literally 4 years old. I don't remember what color. I just remember laying on the floor under the kitchen table with my arm around him and really feeling like we were one. And he found me again. He's going to be reincarnating again, and he's shown me what he will look like. But 2 days after he passed, I was walking around the house and I saw him. But instead of seeing him in the same body, I saw him as a big, but I just knew it was him because, you know, I spent more time with him than I've spent alone with any human. I mean, he and I were so close. It looked like a big sphere of pink light. And I mean, I could see it to the point where I could say it's there, it's there, it's there. It was really, really intense. Pink is the color of unconditional love. I knew it was him. So my husband was watching TV in the living room, so I went in the bedroom and I sat up in bed, like you know how you sit up to either watch TV or read. So I was sitting up and I patted the bed next to me. And I said, "Come on, Sky." Patted the bed and I said, "Come on up here with Mommy." For 10 minutes, this orb hovered right by my feet, just where he would be, like my feet were like this and he was here. Now, of course, remember I said, try to invalidate it any way you can? I stopped the video, I wiped the lens off. I did it again, it's still there. I stopped again, I wiped the lens off. Still was there. I looked around to make sure there was no light source. As thrilled as I was, I also wanted to be practical. Plus I could also feel and sense that it was him. So after about 10 minutes, he started floating up through the ceiling. I looked around for lights. You see how dark it is out here? There's no street lights. I have light darkening shades. The only light on was a clock just like that. Nothing was on. And you can still see other things shooting around, which is normal. I'm sorry, I should hold it up higher. Which is very normal in my house and in my life. That brought such tremendous comfort. And then after about 10 minutes, just went up through the ceiling. So of course you consciously go, okay, if it's a speck of dust, we've wiped it 3 times now, I stopped it 3 times, wiped it twice, it's not going to float up and then just disappear. So you cannot see how pink it was magenta pink. Now, animals show up quite commonly and easily in film. Jesse was Sky's kind of uncle, godfather. When I'd go away, he would go and stay with Uncle Jesse. Well, I was away volunteering on the Lakota reservation one year, and I was talking to Jesse to see how Sky was doing. I said, "Why don't you get your camera out? I'm going to pop in for a visit." So I came in through the wall, gave Sky a hug, and then went back out. That was the reflection. So you don't look at that and go, oh my God, demonic activity. No, that is just the flash off of his, oops. So, there are many more in this series, and he's under that. That's when I was actually hugging him and embracing him. There's probably, you took maybe like 6 of all different, and you can see that's the kind of his rear quarters, because I was really hugging him. I was in Costa Rica last April, I think, early in this year, and I'm saying last year. And this woman and I were taking pictures in the jungle. I could get a close-up of that. Well, what you can tell is it's a random shape, like a starburst or a sunburst, and then that line coming across my face. So I analyzed it and I said, okay, you know what? It could have been a vine hanging down. There was no vine there hanging down, and the other end of it isn't attached to anything. That's probably the best I can find it. Because at first I said, oh, it's a flower. It wasn't a flower. Now the same woman and I had gone on a different trip that I was teaching at, in fact where I met her. And one night they said, hey, can we do some spirit photography? I said, sure. I mean, it wasn't what we were there for, but sure. So I talked about the colors of energy, and I said pink's the color of unconditional love, and it's really nice to do work where you are filled with pink, and to ask that all your guides and teachers and visitors also be of love and light. I will find this picture because it's completely pink. Now, if you just look quickly at all these pictures, see how one of them is magenta?
Yeah.
And look above my head. So what I said was, I'm going to call in my high teachers and guides so that they'll be present for everybody here as your teachers and guides when you're here under my, well, under my care and responsibility. This line here is light. There was no stripe in the room, right there. Okay, so know your environment too when you go to analyze something. Like if I took a picture here and I got something in it, I would come back down and look and say, aha, there is a strip on the bottom of that door that could have picked up light and it's reflecting. Again, you try to eliminate every possibility, but the spirit activity above, the pink everywhere, and then that line. The only other place I have gotten, I call them ribbons of light, was at Sandy Hook. I went there a couple of days after that tragedy, and they had a Christmas tree set up for every child with gifts and toys and things, and I took a lot of pictures, and there were ribbons of light just woven everywhere, literally ribbons of pink light everywhere. It was absolutely soothing and comforting to see. And a lot of people would erase the pictures going, oh, there's some interference here, when it really was something more than that. So, orbs, presence of energy, not necessarily a spirit unless you see a picture inside of a person, like a face or a body, or a dog, or a cat, or an animal, but an image of a being, a living being inside, then you can say it is definitely spirit activity. You know how our cameras and our cells and our things are pretty smart with the date? They actually use these in courts of law for dates because you can't mess with them. Like they actually can say, you did this at this time, so you don't have an alibi because this shows. I just have to show you the date on this.
Well,
January 1st, 4,501. I have no idea how that happened. At the top. So 4,501. I'm sure my hair will be a little grayer than it is now. But it was a beautiful, and it wasn't to anyone, this thought. I just found it and I said, oh, this is nice. I'm going to just save this. I thank God for giving me eyes to see the beauty of the sunrise, nose to smell the fragrance of the blooming flowers, and a heart to love the most wonderful person in my life. That is you, my dear. Good morning. And it's kind of like a self thing, because it was New Year's Day. Fire and water and air. Things that move, you're very likely to find imagery. So when we go camping and we make a fire here, I just honor the element of fire and the fire spirits of the fire energy, or anyone or anything else that's of love or of light, highest to greatest good, whatever words you use, and I invite them, not demand, invite. It's even better than asking to invite, because you can ask for something from someone without a real kind heart or open heart, or for not the right reason, maybe for an egotistical reason, but an invitation is usually heartfelt. So you will start seeing movement and motion, and I wish this had, like that's a weird configuration for fire to start separating, and I wish this had been more of a video. But if you start zooming into some of your fire pictures, maybe not in this particular one, you're going to start seeing faces. And again, not those things you got to squint, you got to look upside down, you got to stand on one leg. Smoke does the same thing. Okay, so consider things like you can start seeing a face emerging. Had I not asked for spirits to make their presence known, I wouldn't have even looked that closely.